Hi, welcome to Narrated Audio Story. Sit back and enjoy today's story. Kindly like and share this video. Thanks. Celia and Daniel had always been a team. Their life together seemed like a perfect picture. They were married for 7 happy years, and their daughter Abby brought even more joy into their home. But things started to change when Daniel's business began to struggle. Daniel was once a lively and loving husband. They'd laugh and share stories over dinner, and Abby was the light of their lives. But gradually, Daniel became withdrawn. He would sit silently at the dinner table, his mind somewhere else. Celia noticed this change, but Daniel kept brushing it off. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Celia decided to ask about it. "Honey, what's been going on with you lately? You've been so distant." Daniel took a sip of his beer and sighed. "It's just work, Celia. Business isn't going well. I'm trying to fix things." Celia tried to reassure him. "We'll get through this together. Just talk to me." But Daniel's silence continued. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's mood grew colder. He no longer had the energy to play with Abby or help around the house. Celia was worried, but didn't know how to reach him. One morning, as Celia made breakfast for Abby, she found a note on the kitchen counter. It was in Daniel's handwriting. The note read, "I'm doing this for us. Remember that I love you." There was no explanation, no goodbye. Celia's heart sank as she read the note. She tried to call Daniel's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic set in as the realization that he was gone hit her. She didn't know where he went or why he left. Weeks passed, and Celia tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for Abby. The little girl was too young to understand what had happened. Celia put on a brave face, trying to shield Abby from the chaos of her emotions. One day, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from a lawyer. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Daniel. The lawyer's note mentioned that Daniel wanted to make sure Celia and Abby were provided for. The gesture seemed cold and impersonal, adding more confusion to Celia's distress. Celia couldn't understand why Daniel hadn't talked to her about his problems. His sudden disappearance and the divorce papers left her feeling abandoned and betrayed. The life they once had was shattered, and Celia was left to pick up the pieces, trying to figure out how to move forward with Abby. Months had gone by since Daniel vanished. Celia was doing her best to keep their lives on track. She focused on Abby, making sure the little girl was happy and healthy despite the missing father. However, the emptiness Daniel left behind was hard to ignore. One day, Abby came running to her mother, excited about summer camp. "Please, Mommy, can I go? All my friends are going." Celia saw the joy in Abby's eyes and couldn't deny her. "Okay, sweetie, you can go to camp." With Abby away at camp for 2 weeks, Celia decided to visit her best friend Emily, who lived in another city. Emily always had a way of making Celia feel better. As Celia drove to Emily's house, she felt a small sense of relief, hoping that some time away would clear her mind. Emily welcomed Celia with open arms. "Come on in, let's catch up and eat some good food." Celia had been looking forward to a break from her daily routine. The stress of raising Abby alone and dealing with the aftermath of Daniel's disappearance had worn her thin. That's why she eagerly accepted Emily's invitation to stay for a few days. Emily's house was a haven. It was warm, inviting, and filled with laughter. They spent the first day catching up and enjoying each other's company. Celia felt a sense of relief, a break from the chaos of her life. The following week, Celia decided to go to the local supermarket to get some bagels. It was a small, mundane task that felt oddly comforting. As Celia wandered the aisles, she tried to focus on something other than her troubled thoughts. She picked up a pack of bagels, still thinking about how to make Abby's summer camp experience special. That's when she saw him. There, at the end of the aisle, stood a man who looked exactly like Daniel. He was with a woman and a young boy who looked to be about 3 or 4 years old. They were laughing and chatting, appearing like a perfect family. Celia's heart skipped a beat. She blinked several times, hoping the figure would disappear. But no, there he was, looking just as she remembered him. Celia's hands shook as she clutched the bagel package. She approached them, her voice trembling with anger. "Daniel, is that really you?" The man turned around, his face a mask of confusion. The woman next to him looked equally puzzled. "Honey, who is this?" she asked, holding the boy's hand. Daniel, or the man who looked like him, looked at Celia with a blank expression. "I'm sorry, but I don't know who you are." Celia's frustration boiled over. "Don't lie to me. You left me and Abby without a word, and now you're here with a new family?" The man sighed, then turned to the woman. "This must be a misunderstanding," he said. Turning back to Celia, he said, "I'm Mark, Daniel's twin brother. I didn't expect to meet you like this." Celia was stunned. She had never heard of a twin brother. "Twin brother?" she asked, her voice cracking with disbelief. "I didn't even know Daniel had a brother." Mark nodded. "Yes, Daniel and I were separated when we were young. Our parents divorced, and he went with our mother while I stayed with our father. We lost touch over the years." Celia's anger began to mix with confusion. "So why is Daniel with another family? Why did he leave us?" Mark looked pained. Daniel was in serious trouble. His business was failing, and he was drowning in debt. He thought that if he disappeared, he could protect you and Abby from the financial mess. He didn't want you to be dragged into his problems. Celia's eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't he just tell me? Why did he think disappearing was the solution?" Mark explained. "He was ashamed. He thought he could protect you by leaving everything in your name, but he didn't realize how much pain he would cause. He didn't know how to face you or deal with the mess he was in." Mark handed Celia an address. "Daniel is living not too far from here. If you want answers, you should go see him." Celia felt a mix of anger and sadness. The life she had tried so hard to rebuild had just been rocked by a new revelation. With the address in hand, she had a decision to make. Would she confront Daniel and seek the answers she needed, or would she let the past stay buried? With the address Mark had given her, Celia found herself standing outside a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Her heart pounded as she rang the doorbell, each chime echoing her nervousness. The door opened slowly, and there stood Daniel. He looked older, with more lines on his face and a weary expression. When he saw Celia, his eyes widened in shock and guilt. "Celia," Daniel said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't think you'd come." Celia's emotions were a whirlwind. "Why did you leave us, Daniel? Why did you think disappearing was the answer?" Daniel stepped aside to let her in. The house was simple, with basic furniture and no signs of the affluence they once had. He sat down heavily on the couch, gesturing for Celia to sit across from him. "I didn't want to drag you and Abby into my problems," Daniel began. "The business was failing, and I was deeply in debt. I thought if I disappeared, I could keep you safe. I thought I was protecting you by leaving everything in your name, but I didn't realize how much damage I'd cause." Celia's eyes were filled with tears. "You didn't even give us a chance. You left us with nothing but a note. We struggled for months. Abby missed you so much. How could you think this was the right choice?" Daniel's eyes filled with tears as well. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think it through. I was ashamed and afraid. I thought I could fix everything from a distance and come back when things were better. But it never worked out that way." Celia shook her head. "You can't just erase the hurt you caused by saying sorry. You abandoned us, and it wasn't just about the money. It was about trust and love." Daniel reached out, his voice breaking. "Please, Celia, I was wrong. I realize that now. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was doing what was best." Celia stared at him, struggling to reconcile the man she once loved with the person who had hurt her so deeply. "I need time to process this. I don't know if I can ever forgive you." They sat in silence, the weight of the past between them. Daniel's pleas for forgiveness echoed in Celia's mind as she left his house, feeling a mixture of anger, sorrow, and confusion. The next day, at Emily's house, Celia's mind was still reeling from her confrontation with Daniel. She sat quietly, lost in thought, as Emily tried to cheer her up. "Are you okay, Celia?" Emily asked, concern etched on her face. Celia sighed. "I saw Daniel. He's living a different life now. He tried to explain why he left, but it's hard to accept." Emily nodded, understanding. "It must be so difficult to process all this. Do you think you can forgive him?" Celia shook her head. "I don't know. He's sorry, but it's not just about forgiveness. It's about rebuilding trust. Abby and I have been through so much because of him. I can't just forget that." Abby was set to return from camp soon. Celia was determined to be strong for her daughter. She knew that despite the turmoil in her own heart, Abby needed stability and love. Celia took a deep breath and thought about her next steps. She knew she had to focus on moving forward, even if it meant carrying the pain with her. The future was uncertain, and she had to make decisions that would be best for Abby and herself. Celia resolved to keep her interactions with Daniel to a minimum. She would allow herself time to heal and figure out what kind of relationship, if any, she could have with him in the future. For now, her priority was to ensure that Abby felt loved and secure. As Abby's summer camp came to an end, Celia prepared to pick her up. She felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Reuniting with Abby was a moment she looked forward to, but it also meant facing the challenges of rebuilding their lives. Celia's journey was far from over. She had faced betrayal and heartbreak, but was determined to create a better future for herself and her daughter. The path ahead was unclear, but Celia was ready to navigate it with resilience and hope. What do you think about this story? Leave a comment below this video. Thanks for watching.